All right, so I see that it's 2 o'clock, so I'll just get started. So welcome to Civic Action in the Geography classroom. And so my name is Rachel Collishaw. I am a pedagogical advisor with Elections Canada. And after 20 odd years in the classroom, I made the move over to work with Elections Canada to develop civic ed resources and to do lots of professional learning, which is kind of my dream job. So I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, Brent, for sharing where you're at. So just to give you a sense of what we're going to be doing in this hour today. So we'll start with a few introductions, both in the chat, and then I've got a little Google form for you to fill out. I'll give you an overview of our civic education program that we offer at Elections Canada, and then we're going to explore civic action then and now with sort of a geography lens. And then there'll be time for discussion and questions, and then I'll explain how you can get your hands on all of our resources. They're all free for you to view, download, and order. Sorry, just figuring out where all my stuffs are. There we go. Okay, so so I'd love if you could please share your teaching context in the chat. Here we go. And answer our very short poll. There's only like 3 questions, and one of them is, I mean, they're all optional. But yeah, I'm not sure. Let me know if you have any trouble getting the links from this. And if that doesn't work, then we'll just do something else. But the questions are: how confident are you in teaching about elections and democracy? How familiar are you with Elections Canada's educational resources? And also, what do you hope to learn today? So if there's something you're particularly curious about, I can make sure and make time for that in today's presentation. Oh, I've got one keener responding already. Good work. And we've got a couple of responses. Great. Oh, and we've got a few more people have joined us, which is fantastic. Welcome. And thank you for sharing. Thanks, Camille, saying the link works. Oh, Vancouver Island. Lovely. I wish I knew how to say these words. I'll work. Okay, so we've got a few responses in the poll, so I'm just going to throw those up here onto my screen. So I can see we've got lots of people who are confident about teaching about elections and democracy, which is lovely. Oh, said I disconnected there for a second. Hopefully I'm back. Okay, so let's get into it. So here's an intro to our resources. So those of you that are already familiar with our resources will know that they are inquiry-based, cross-curricular, collaborative, nonpartisan, bilingual, accessible, and free. And we arrived at these sort of guideposts for our resources through extensive consultation with teachers right across Canada. So we really spent a good amount of time talking to teachers and finding out what it is that they need to teach about Canada's elections. And all of our lessons include a big idea, an inquiry question, a 3-part lesson structure, and hands-on materials such as what you see in this image here. This is Civic Action Then and Now, which we're going to be exploring in a bit more detail today, but they're nice, interactive, hands-on. We do have online and blended versions as well. So speaking of blended learning, so we do have a, during the pandemic, and like all the school closures, like everybody else in 2020, we did a big pivot, and we adapted our physical resource kits to online, blended, and hybrid, or whatever kind of school environments you might have. So we've created online resources that are complementary, and so that you can choose the online and in-class strategies that best support your students' learning and whatever context you find yourself in. And I do have the blended learning guide for this resource kind of set up to show you a little bit how it works. So you get a bit of an overview, all the links to like where you can find the resources. But what we did was we created this really in-class and online menu. So you can see, well, I want the kids to be doing this part in class and this part online. And so you have all your different options, and you can kind of work your way through that menu and blend it how it makes sense for you and your students. Oh, here we go. So we also today we're going to really a little bit be talking about inquiry and a little bit geography and lots of other things, but we really pride ourselves on creating resources that support inquiry learning in your classroom. So these are kind of our guideposts for inquiry learning. So we have that emphasis on the student's role as sort of explorer, that students are engaged, they're curious, and they collaborate. One of my former principals used to say, she could tell if inquiry learning was happening if there was BIA, and she called that bums in the air. So like kids are kind of bent over their desks and bums are up in the air and they're doing something. So that's sort of the feel that we're going for. A compelling question that guides the learning, critical thinking, and that idea of sort of iterating ideas, challenging, testing, and redefining. So so today we're going to be exploring civic action then and now. And so each of our resources has a compelling question to get us started. Um, and this one, the question is, how can you take action to make a difference? So that's kind of why we decided to share this resource and go a little bit more in depth at this geography conference, because we know that in geography classrooms, students are, getting engaged, they're inquiring, and they want to know what they can do. What can we do about climate change? What can we do about these things that are happening in our world? And so we wanted to share civic action as a way for you to think about how to help students start to take action on the things that they care about. So, so I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of participation. And so what I'd like to know is, what is one thing that you would like to change in your school, community, or society? So this is our minds-on question for students for this resource. And students, we invite students to kind of write this down quietly on their own. So this is part one of that three-part lesson, and it really invites students to connect their own experiences to the ideas that they're going to be exploring. It invites that curiosity and makes the learning meaningful, and of course increases the engagement through the activity. Uh, so in our blended learning situation, we just use a Google Doc, but today let's use the chat. So I'd like you to think about, sort of for yourself, or you could think in the place of one of your students. What is one thing that you would like to change in your school, community, or society? And I invite you to just write that down on your own wherever you are. If you'd like, you can share it in the chat. You don't need to. And the important thing that we're sharing in this Minds On, or that we're starting to think about, is what could you do to change it? So this is where we're really starting to have students think about what's an action that they could take to do something about it. So maybe if the thing that you care about is climate change or local politics, or whatever it is, thinking through that, what's that one thing that you could do to change it? So does anybody have any ideas of things that you could do to change something in your world? Or like, what might your students say in answer to this question? So while you're thinking about that, I'll share some of the things that students have told us in the past. So they've said, make school starting time later, more funding for mental health, free transportation or free buses, cleaner bathrooms, more funding to Indigenous communities. So it kind of, this usually runs the whole gamut from things that are very local and specific to things that are very global. And here's some of the things that students have told us that they could do to change it. So maybe a petition, maybe protest, maybe hire more cleaners to do the cleaner bathrooms. So we're just trying to gather that sort of what are you thinking now? Because at the end of the activity, we're going to come back to this and we're going to have them think about their thinking, do some metacognition. All right, so now we're into the activity of the of the of the activity. So we've provided two historical case studies, and what I love about historical case studies is that they really give you that context for what the students are going to be doing later. They provide a little bit of a model, and it's really important that these two case studies are both successful actions that people took in the past. So students can start to see the complexity of taking like a big action, but that it all kind of comes down to individuals working together and doing specific things. Uh, so the way that the activity works is that we've got two case studies that come with the activity kit, and each one has a video that goes with it. And I think we'll just watch this one today, the Aboriginal and Treaty Rights. I'm assuming, most of you are familiar with like how women got the right to vote. But this one is not as well known of a case study. So I'm going to pop this so I'm going to share the YouTube using the YouTube sharing, which is very exciting. So as we watch this video, I'd like for you to think about, to kind of notice what are the actions that people are taking in this video to bring about the change that they want. Watch for those actions, and I'm going to ask you to share them in the chat either after the video or you can pop them in as we go. Great. Okay, so back to my question, which is what changes, like what were the actions that people took? So we know they wanted to, make sure that Aboriginal and treaty rights were recognized in our Constitution. Um, and so what kinds of actions did people take? Whoop, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So, so one of the things that so so how you can introduce this to students is by then introducing this model for civic action. So we saw that in the photo with the students using it as a mat. We'll see it again soon. But this idea is that no civic action sort of occurs in isolation. That people do take actions in a variety of ways, and we have this sort of model for how people take this action. So they participate as an individual, like they volunteer, they sign a petition, they attend a meeting, they express interest. So if we think about the Constitution train, we think about like an individual makes a decision, I'm going to get on that train and I'm going to go to Ottawa. So that's an example of an individual action. Students often take individual action all the time, like they, sign petitions or they volunteer in their community. So that's kind of where student action often sits. Working through the political system is another one that is, pretty well understood by everybody. So that, whole uh, the members, the Indigenous folks meet with politicians and they present to committees and Parliament. So they're actually meeting with various people to get their point across. Working together as a group. So that is collective action. So making a group, joining together. So, joining, I think in this example, my favorite one is, the First Nations groups, the Inuit groups and the Métis groups all join together to make this change happen. And then building public support is really that sort of outreach action. So, taking it to the media. So you see the media on Parliament Hill and like making sure that people know about the issue. So thank you for your question, Brent. What is the source for the Civic Action Circle? Is it Elections Canada proprietorship or borrowed from elsewhere? So we actually developed this based on the work of Dr. Alan Sears at University of New Brunswick. So he wrote a paper for People for Education a few years ago about civic profiles. And so what he found in his research around civic education was that students were really participating as individuals, and teachers in civic education classes were really talking about this, what is the political system? How does a bill become a law? That kind of stuff. But what he found was also that nobody was really talking about how civil society works. So that's what he called this working together as a group. So we've kind of put it in more student-friendly language, but that civil society, and then also like kind of doing these campaigns, media campaigns, and other communications to make sure that people know about it. So we see lots of examples of civic action where like lots of people in the political system are on board, people have formed groups, and there's individuals who are engaging, but if it doesn't have wide public support, um, the lawmakers might not pass the law because they don't see it as something important to a majority of folks. So that's where it came from. So we developed it, but we love for people to use it in all kinds of contexts, and we're happy for you to use it. We do ask that you attribute the origin of this. So we developed it based on that research. And I don't know, Kemi, if you're able to like put the link to that original research, or I can certainly find it later in the presentation if you're interested, Brent. Um, so so here's how the activity carries on. So next, students get the mat and they get a deck of cards. So when you order the kits, you get 6 activity mats and 3 of each set of cards. So you get 3 for the Aboriginal and Treaty Rights and then 3 for women and the right to vote in Manitoba. So how do women organize basically and get that right to vote? And so you basically have enough for a classroom, six small groups. And if you do need more materials than that, like if you have a ginormous class, or if you would like the whole class to do just one case study, then you can download and print more from the website. So we have it in a very printable version for teachers. So students now get these little cards that describe different actions that people took, and then they read the activity cards aloud and they discuss where they might go in the civic action model. There's not any right answers. I mean, there's the answers we were thinking of when we were writing them, and we do include those in the teacher guide. But we encourage students to kind of put things on a line if they can't decide, or you can view it as belonging to more than one group. It's just a theory or a theoretical model. It's not a hard and fast rule, but the idea is for students to have these conversations about what kinds of actions you can take, and to kind of really engage with um, the historical action. So I do have another short video. This one's not on YouTube, so I'm not going to share it today. But this is Wendy Driscoll in Dartmouth. She is the she's involved with the Social Studies Teachers Association there, and she was on our advisory circle of educators, and so she had her students do this activity as part of our launch activities back in 2018, and we're gonna see her students a little bit later. I do have a video I'm hopefully going to be able to share with you later. And yeah, so we do have an advisory circle of educators of folks from across Canada that help us make sure that we're on the right track in terms of developing materials that are going to work across Canada. So here's where we get to play around a bit. So we get an online adaptation. So we made this in, you can kind of see it's a Google Draw. And so we've got the cards here. So you've got instructions. It kind of looks sort of like the circle. It's best we could do. And then the students place the cards where they think they go. And I think I'm going to try doing some breakout rooms. How many people we got now? Sorry, my mouse is all over the place. Yeah, so we could maybe do 2 breakout rooms. And I'm going to give you the links to the case studies. So I've got case study 1 on women and the right to vote. I'm going to put that link in the chat. Yeah, you're going to be able to see it in a second. So, oh, I'm not sure if that, let me try this again. Here. So this one is for women and the right to vote. Okay. I need to, and then this one is Aboriginal and treaty rights. So I'm going to show you how it works. Hopefully you can get there. So I'm going to bring this one over so you can see it live. Okay. So yeah, it looks like the links are working. And I'm pretty sure I made it so anyone can edit. Let me just make sure. Right, so share. So yeah, anyone with the link can edit. So what you do is that you can make it bigger. I think. Nope, that's not going to make it bigger. Make it bigger here. So you can. Whoa, that's very big. Let's do 100% so we can read it a bit. So in the women's case study, one of the things that women did was get support from others. So Manitoba's women's groups got support from other organizations such as the Manitoba Grain Growers Association. So I think that one actually goes over here. And I'm going to make this go back to fit. So I should be able to move that right over here. So I think that goes over here in the working together as a group. So because it kind of fits with this idea of joining or forming a group. So I see a number of you are on here, which is great. So feel free to start reading and dragging. You can also go to the other one. So, nope, this is women in the vote too. Oh my goodness. It's just, okay, never mind. Let me see. I'm going to go back to my links. Okay. Here's the Aboriginal rights. My apologies for the messy links. So here, I'm going to open this one up. And I'm going to see if we can make a breakout. People per room. So I'm just going to create 2 breakout rooms for 10 minutes. And you can go and pick a case study and move the things around. Hopefully you were able to get to the case studies. I see some people are on here. I'm just going to go on to the Aboriginal Treaty Rights one, since that's the one that we talked about. And I think one of my favorite pieces of this one is how Aboriginal leaders petitioned the Queen. So First Nations chiefs took a petition to Queen Elizabeth. It asked her and the British government to delay patriating the Constitution until Indigenous rights were included, which I think is super cool. And also, like, the Queen is literally still part of our political system. They also, individuals also brought food to the train. So in the video, it kind of says like people implies that people got on board the train, but in fact, it was 1,000 people that started from BC and came all the way on 2 different trains. But people just brought food to them along the way. It wasn't like, Via Rail wasn't providing dining car service to them. And so just this one I love because it kind of helps you think through, like, what are the logistics of doing a civic action like this one? And this make presentations to the political system. So, they, yeah, there we go. Thank you, Rhino and Hamster. Feel free, move things around. um, yeah, gets a little squishy. Again, like we were making these sort of in the middle of the pandemic as a way for teachers to take it and use it in their classrooms. But we hope that it is useful for you as a way to explore these ideas together. And I think obviously one of the things that I love about this activity is that you can really I kind of get my civic action goggles on. And so you can kind of look at any civic action that is happening in the world and analyze it using these 4 kind of ways of seeing. So you can see, well, did they build support? Is this an individual taking action? How are they working in groups or together? And are they actually taking it to the political system? Ooh, some fancy upside down cards going on there. Yeah, and this last one, this is great. This is the last one. I think this is really key that the new national organization, so we used to be the National Indian Brotherhood. It changed its name, changed the way it was organized, and became the Assembly of First Nations. So this story is actually part of the story of the Assembly of First Nations, and we had them review this activity as well to make sure it was aligned with what they what they want to, what they want to have put out. So, yeah, so that's kind of the activity. Another note on the blended versions. So when we made our blended learning versions, we made them only with our language learner version. So this activity is designed for secondary students. But we do in the regular version, but we do have a special language learner version in both English and French, where that's designed for language learners. So students who are in French immersion or students who are English language learners in whatever context. It can also really work with younger students. Thank you, Camille, for putting the research. And then we also have so we made the decision to put the language learner in the online because we know that it's more challenging for students to read text that is online rather than in print and in person. So, that we recognize that students might be doing these activities kind of more on their own rather than collectively with the support of the group. So we wanted to still make it very accessible for them. Okay, so I'm going to close these down and we'll move along. So now we kind of move into the consolidation phase of the lesson. So students would discuss and share what could happen if you removed one of the sections. Or, if you wanted to ask a more historical question, you could ask what would the events in the case study be similar or different today? So 1982 is not super different, but I mean there was no internet, and I think when you see the actions that women took in in the early 20th century to get the right to vote, there's definitely some clear technological differences. But I think the first question, what could happen if you removed one of the sections, is super interesting with this, especially if you're thinking about having students, engaging students in deciding on a civic action of their own, um, because they start to see that you can't actually remove any one of the sections to have a successful civic action. And that's where I say, like, I get my civic action goggles on, I can read a news article and I can be like, highlighting, and get my 4 highlighters out in my mind and see like, oh yeah, that's where they all are. And I've had students discuss this, what could you happen if we removed one of the sections? And there's a class that I presented in where like every group had a different answer. So they were like, oh, you could remove the individual one or you could remove the group one. And they had, some interesting arguments about that. But they were also not, but then they were like, really, yeah, you can't actually remove any of them and still have a successful civic action. Uh, so now we come back to that, little reflection that we did at the beginning. So consider the action you wrote down at the start of the activity and what kind of civic action is it and how has your thinking changed since the beginning? My favorite example for this is that petition example. So, students often write petition. It's like just a thing that you could do. Now, signing a petition is definitely an individual action, but if you encourage other people to sign it and do a communications campaign around a petition, then that's making it public. You might need to form a group to collaborate on a petition or work with other groups to get the word out. So that's your working together as a group, and then you would need to present that petition to somebody in a position of power. So if you're doing something in your school, it's presenting it to the principal, or if you're doing something in your community, or if you're even at the House of Commons or your provincial legislature, there's procedures for how to present petitions into those spaces. So things don't change unless you actually do something about it. So petition could be all 4. So this is really encouraging students to kind of get into the details of how civic actions actually happen. And so these questions are also, we provide a thinking guide handout that has the questions from the beginning and then these questions at the end as well. So it kind of helps bring the students through the activity. And then, so then this is really the heart of it about planning your own civic action. So what was that thing you wrote down at the beginning? What would you like to change? What would it look like if you changed it for the better? Doing some visioning. What are the results you would like to see? And what other actions could you do, or what could you do to take action? So now students have this framework of these 4 different ways to take action. They could start to think through that very, practically. Uh, and we provide a little tool for them to think it through practically. It's a little small on this slide, so I'll just show you what it looks like in the blended version. The print version is basically the same, it's just not in color, so it doesn't have the different 4 colors. Let's make it fit. So basically, we provide this just as a handout that you can use that has the descriptions of the 4 categories and some space for students to brainstorm. So, it's their civic action now, or, you can do whatever you want to do with your classroom. I, I love showing this video. I'm going to see if I can make it work. So I have it up here. And I'm just trying to remember. So I'll bring it over and we'll see if it works. Share audio. Okay. So let me know if the sound shares or if it doesn't. Kemi, if you're still here, that'd be great. Just let me know. Oh, boo, no sound. Okay. Let me just do a quick check. So there was a video. Sorry, now my... Okay. Yeah, I think I'm not going to be able to share the actual video, which is a little too bad, but it's fine. Oh, you heard something, but it was really quiet. Oh dear. Um, in any case, in this shot, you can see this is Stéphane Perrault. He's our Chief Electoral Officer of Canada. So he's a big supporter of the civic education programs, and he's in charge of all of our federal elections and referendums. And here he is working with a group of grade 9 students in Dartmouth. Doing the civic action. So what I love in this video is that we hear from the students directly about what they want to change. So I have some quotes just in case the video doesn't work. So you can kind of read what the students are saying and get a sense of the kinds of ideas that students get from doing this activity. And it's a very buzzy, conversational, hands-on classroom. Also, they have adorable maritime accents. Apologies to anybody who's on the East Coast. I just think it's great. Okay. So, yeah, so I'm wondering what you're thinking. And what are your takeaways? So what's like, do you have a new idea that you could use or a question that you have for me about anything? I do have about civic action or about our programs. I do have a couple of slides to share with you today about our geography specific resources, but we do love civic action because it can be very cross curricular in terms of supporting all kinds of outcomes. So if you do have a new idea or a question, you can drop it in the chat and I'm happy to answer it. And I'll just carry on, and once your questions pop up, I'll address them. So we do have 9 resources for secondary schools. We also have one more. So this resource, our election simulation toolkit, is grades 4 to 12. We also have one more resource that is K to 3 called Choosing Our Mascot. So for the very littles, but most of our resources are for secondary students. They're all free to order, download, and almost all of them have blended learning adaptations as well. So I just wanted to a couple of words about our geography resources. So this is the Geography of Elections, which is the resource that includes the large wall map. So if you're looking for the wall maps of Canada's federal electoral districts, this is the one for you. So you get this plain wall map of just the districts. The dots were added by us, and then you get one of the most recent results. So you get the 2021 election results map. So it's colored in with the colors of the parties that won in each riding. Right now, if you order it, I think you also get the 2019 election results because we still have some left over. So you get usually 2, sometimes you get 3 wall maps depending on how close elections are. But the real gold in this activity is so it's really encourages students to look at basic mapping skills and like how do you read a map and who made the map and those kinds of questions, map literacy in general, and then this is we created a fact sheet for each electoral district in Canada. So you can see you get a riding map, and then you get some stats that we've pulled from Stats Can as well as voter turnout. So there's about 10 different facts on each fact sheet, and the idea is that students then you can pull the one where your school is and have students examine it and try and understand it and look at the statistics, and then you would also then have just have students compare them to another electoral district. You can have each group look at different ones. You can kind of take it how you want. Let me see if I have, here we go. So I've got the link right here. I will drop it in the chat so you can kind of take a look at the geography of elections. And if you want to just take a look at the fact sheets themselves, you can see them all here. So they're all available. Like I said, like everything we do, it's available in English and French. So that's geography of elections. And then this one is my current favorite. I mean, they're all my babies, but this one is a favorite right now because we are actually in the process of redistribution. So this one really simulates the process of redistribution. So how do we decide where our federal electoral boundaries go? You can see the map that you get. It's laminated, so you can just use your whiteboard markers right away, or you get six maps, I think, for small groups to use. And there's reference maps as well. So they have to kind of think about the population, draw the lines on the map, and try and make it fair. And what I love about this activity is that it's really hard to make it fair. There's no right answer. Just like in real life, you can't make everything perfectly fair. We worked on this in collaboration with the Royal Canadian Geographic Society. So CanGeo helped us build this particular resource. Drew these great maps for us and helped us with the concept. And now we offer a print version that we will ship to you. And I believe you can find it on the CanGeo website as well in a printable version. Our version's also printable. This is one of my favorites. This is our colleague Joanne. She worked on redistribution 10 years ago and was the geomatics team leader for Alberta. So she talks about what her role was, what it's like to be a geographer at Elections Canada. And I just love this video. It's like a minute and a half, and you really get a sense of what it's like to be a real geographer in the real world, and what they do. Yeah, so the reason why this is super exciting for us right now in Civic Ed is because redistribution is happening again. So redistribution happens every 10 years after the census. And so you can go to the redistribution website, which I just put in the chat, and you can see all the proposed maps. So Ontario just released their proposed map last week, and that was the final province to release their map. And so they're proposing changes to almost all the electoral districts all across the country, even in PEI, not in the territories. They're not included in this process. They just have one electoral district each. But you can go and check out the maps. There's comparative interactive tools, and you can find out about the hearings that are taking place in your community as well. So you can see where you might be able to participate. So I'm just going to actually pull that site up because it's pretty neat. So there's literally a how to participate button. So you're going to check your commission's homepage, or you can just choose a province. So I'm going to choose Ontario because that's where I live. And so you can see the map viewer, the interactive mapping tool, and you can see when all the hearings are going to be over the next few months about those boundaries. And so you'll see it in the news. You'll see people, having their say in this process that really only happens every 10 years. Right, so I'm going to carry on, seeing no questions yet. So we also have curriculum connections. So our resources linked to secondary level curricula in every province and territory. So you can search using this tool for, by course. You can search by resource. You can search, use the language, whatever you need to do. So you can find what's going to work for you. And then, of course, here's our website. So you go to the website to order everything. We are also on Twitter and Facebook. And I'll just show you quickly where you can find everything. So here's our website. I mean, if you just want to order the things, you don't need to explore anything. You just hit this order button and it will take you to the order form, which my internet's being a bit slow today. There we go. So this will bring you back to the main Elections Canada website, and you'll be able to put in all your information and just check what you want. So you'll notice, for example, with Civic Action Then and Now, you've got the two versions. So one of them is the regular, and then the other one is the language learner, and you can order them in French or English. And it takes usually less than 2 weeks to get the resources to you. And then if you're looking for the activity itself. So you can go here to find all the blended learning tools, and you can find the resource itself here. And there's a home page that has all of these sort of accordions, all the things you might need to download. The activity cards are available here in Standard or in Language Learner. Both the videos. We also provide a slide deck for teachers that kind of looks like the one a little bit that I shared with you today. And under enhancements, we've got, extensions and teaching tips, and then you'll also find the support videos. So if you just want I just want 5 minutes to how do I use this stuff? I just got all this stuff in the mail. How do I use it? This is a video to help you unpack it, and I share little teacher tips about how to use it in your classroom. So I just have one more slide, which is our short takeaway poll. So let me find this. So if you do, and so you've got 10 minutes. So if you want to answer our little takeaway poll, just let us know if this presentation was helpful to you. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Everything is wonky today. And if you would like us to contact you, we do PD both virtually and in person across Canada. So myself and my colleague Camille and a few other educators are ready and willing to come to any PD event in your area and help you help kind of share about our services. So if you're interested in that, please leave your email in the takeaway poll, and let us know what you thought. If you have any other comments, please feel free to leave them in the chat. Or any questions.